What is going on, guys? Crispy Critters, Shummel Gaming here. Today's video, we're gonna talk about how to become an Atomic Heart Combat Master. After this video, you should have a better idea, better grasp of how to get through this game. We're gonna talk a lot about the weapon upgrades, the weapon blueprints, consumables, the character glove upgrades, the enemy types, and just how to manage your inventory and use the best weapons in this game to help you get through it. This game has been an absolute blast, and I am happy to share some of the things that I have learned with you guys to help you get through this game. Let's get right into it. Now, to do just about anything in Atomic Heart, you have to gather resources. This is not something that is hard to do by any stretch of the imagination. It's just something you kind of have to continuously remind yourself to do. You need tons of resources to upgrade your character and upgrade your weapon in this game. You'll do this by, anytime you get to a new area, scan the environment, make sure you're looting all of the chests, all of the cabinets, all of the desks, everything that you can to gather resources that you will need to upgrade your character and weapons. The other way to get resources is to loot dead bodies. Make sure every time you kill an enemy in this game, you basically loot the body. If you want to do it by one, or just after you kill all the enemies, go back to the area and loot them all. You will especially need the polymer from dead bodies to upgrade your character. It's really the only way to get it. I just can't stress that enough, that anytime you kill an enemy, that you're always looting their body. And then really kind of the last and best way to get resources is any Nora machine. You can do what I'm doing here, and that is disassemble things. I never personally use the Kalash in this game, so I would pretty much always disassemble that ammunition. I just recommend that anytime you're not using anything, that you disassemble it. Don't do it too much early in the game because you will need the ammunition and the health packs, but as the game goes on, you can disassemble these things to save the resources to upgrade your weapons later in the game. Now, let's talk about consumables. There's 8 in this game, 6 of which you can craft, 3 of those being the small, medium, and large Neuromed capsule. You will have to find the recipes before you can craft any of these consumables, but I found all of them relatively early in the game in random chests. The adrenaline capsule, which restores health and dodge, the electro, which immediately recovers energy, and then the dynamo, which restores energy over a short amount of time. We also have the condensed milk and vodka, which we'll talk about in a little bit. You cannot craft these, you have to find them in the environment. But again, we'll talk about those in just a little bit. Those are my favorite consumables. But the start of the Neuromed capsules, as long as you're searching the environment, I believe you really will not have to craft too many of these over your gameplay. You'll find these in pretty much every chest. You'll find them in plenty of desks, cabinets, and all sorts of things. But if you need to craft them, they don't take that much resources. And just make sure you always have these in your inventory. Obviously, on harder difficulties, the enemies hit a lot harder, and you will need health potions. Just make sure you always have them in your inventory. You can do that at any Nora machine by moving the health potions from your storage to your inventory. And then for the electro and the dynamo, you're going to want to craft these and use them if you're using energy weapons. Early in the game, I didn't really use one. I didn't really like the electro gun, but once I found the rail gun, I started using the energy weapons. This thing is an absolute beast. It hits really hard. And if you're going to use it, I recommend that you craft and carry electros or dynamos in your inventory. As you can see, I just took a shot of the rail gun. So you use the electro, and then that restores your energy bar in the bottom right instantly. Obviously, I don't recommend you use it if you're only missing 1 bar. You can upgrade your character to get up to 5 bars of energy, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And then the dynamo, like I said, is pretty much the same thing as the electro, but it just restores energy over a short amount of time. I don't know why you would really use this instead of the electro. I'd rather have all the energy restored at once instead of having to wait for it restored faster. But I guess if you aren't crafting them, you maybe just find them in the environment, they can work well. This railgun's really good, and we'll get into this more in a little bit. But the last consumable that you can craft is the adrenaline capsule. I'm gonna be honest, I really didn't use this thing too much in my couple runs through this game so far. I imagine you really would use this in boss fights where you're losing damage, where you're taking damage constantly, and you need to dash and dodge more. It restores health, and it basically restores the amount of times you can dodge, which as you can see there, I was just kind of spamming dodge to show it. I didn't really use it too much. I would just use neuromed capsules anytime my health was missing. Let me know down in the comments if you use the adrenaline capsule a lot more. I personally never really did. I'm curious to see as to how other people used it. And then for the 2 consumables that you can't craft but you will find in the environment when you're out gathering resources, we have vodka and we have condensed milk. Vodka basically just reduces the amount of damage you're taking, or in other terms, if you've ever drank before, it gives you beer muscles. If you ever drank before, you also will find out that it makes you really dizzy. And in this game, it does that too. So I would really only use vodka when I was in melee fights. Some of the bosses are kind of melee heavy. It reduces the amount of damage you take, makes the screen dizzy. You won't find vodka too much in the environment, so I wouldn't use it like crazy. You find the condensed milk a lot more than you find the vodka, at least on my runs I have. But I don't know, it's pretty good. I recommend using it, even though it does make your screen dizzy. And then the last one we have, and I'm going to be completely honest, on my first run of this game, I did not realize that condensed milk was an actual consumable. It was something that I was just disassembling because I thought it gave you resources. Then I found out you can actually drink it, and it greatly increases the amount of damage you take. And then when you use this condensed milk, like with an upgraded shotgun or an upgraded melee weapon, you pretty much 1-tap, 2-tap a lot of the enemies in this game. The condensed milk, like I said, I found a lot of while searching the environment, so I do recommend using condensed milk when you know you're going to have a big fight or you are going to have a boss fight. But that's pretty much it for the consumables. Let me know what you guys thought about that, and we'll get into some more here in a little bit. Now let's get into the character and glove upgrades. You can do this at any Nora machine. You upgrade your character with neuropolymer, which I said earlier. You need to loot every enemy in this game. That's how you get neuropolymer, and you are going to need quite a lot of it to upgrade your character all the way. Let's start with the shock ability. This was my favorite ability in the game. I would spam it every time it was off cooldown. The right part of the tree here pretty much focuses on like a ricochet element added to it, where it will basically ricochet through different enemies. If there's 2 or 3 enemies all bunched up, it will hit all 3 enemies instead of just one. Like kind of like chain lightning, like it says there. The left side of the tree is more of your single target damage as far as the shock ability. It will also push them back, and then that one right there reduces shock cooldown. I recommend putting points into shock early in the game. It's a really great ability. It stuns enemies. It does a lot of damage, and it's just overall going to be one of your strongest components to your character. For the character upgrades, there's a few that I want to point out. Most of these have to do with just increasing your max health, increase the amount of physical damage you take, the amount of elemental damage you take, stuff like that. There's a couple though, like I said, that I want to point out that on my first run, I wish I would have gotten earlier. And the first one will be the upgraded backpack storage. If you want to be able to carry like 4 or 5 weapons in this game and all the ammunition for it and the consumables and neuromed capsules, you're gonna want to upgrade these early. You really can only carry like 2 or 3 weapons early in the game without it. And the other one that I recommend going for early is this juggler one. It allows you to basically use the neuromed capsules with 1 hand instead of 2, so that you can keep shooting or using your enemies while healing for obvious reasons. That makes a big difference. And then obviously you're going to want to get all of these before the game is over, but you're probably not going to get most of them until the end. Let's get into the frostbite part of the tree really quick. A frozen enemy in this game is going to be your best enemy. You'd be crazy not to use the frost ability as one of your main abilities in this game. You can freeze enemies, and then the more you upgrade this tree, basically, the longer they'll stay frozen, the farther the range goes on the frozen ability, and stuff like that. So definitely make sure that you're checking this tree out and trying to upgrade it as much. I personally never really used the mass telekinesis, so I won't spend too much time on this. Let me know in the comments if you did. I didn't really find it to be all that helpful. You can respec at any time at any normal machine, if you're wondering. As far as the polymeric jet, that's the other main ability that I used. You can cover enemies in basically the polymer, which you see throughout the game, and then you can ignite it or use. It basically helps them take more elemental damage. The polymeric jet, the polymeric shield, I did use sometimes, but my type of gameplay, I really just want to kill enemies as fast as possible, so that's why I use the shock, frostbite, and polymeric jet. But the polymeric shield is obviously good for reducing damage. Last but not least, as far as the character tree, you have energy management. If you're going to use an energy gun in this game, I recommend going for this. This was the last thing that I upgraded in my tree because I didn't really start using energy weapons until I got the railgun. But obviously, if you're going to use an energy weapon, I highly suggest get into this. Like I said earlier, you can have up to 5 bars. It increases the rate it regenerates, and the railgun's a really good gun. If you plan on using it, I recommend going for the energy management tree early. Now let's get into the fun stuff, the weapons, the blueprints, and the upgrades. Unfortunately, in this game, there's really no definitive way to get each weapon. The game awards you with the pistol, the shotgun, and a melee weapon to start. But the rest of the weapons you have to find the blueprints for in the environment, and you have to do that by just finding them in random crates. Again, but if you just are searching every single crate you find in this game, every room that you go to, you should eventually find them. I found all of them well before I was halfway through the game. And then as far as the blueprints from which you need to upgrade the weapons, you're going to find the vast majority of these in testing grounds. I have some videos about how to do each testing ground on the YouTube channel if you want to check them out. They're really not that hard. They just require a little bit of time. And they're just basically puzzles. A couple of them have some boss fights, but they're really not that bad. And the cool thing about the testing grounds is if you're just looking for a specific attachment, you can actually go to the testing ground on the map and you'll see what weapon attachments you will get for that testing, for completing that testing ground. So you don't have to do them all if you don't want, if you're just looking for some specific ones. And now that you have the weapons and the weapon upgrades that you want, just visit a normal machine and go to upgrades and upgrade your weapon. Now, my type of gameplay in this game was very up close and personal. Most of the enemies in this game are melee, so I found myself using melee weapons a lot. The first weapon I upgraded fully was the Fox. Then my second one was the shotgun. I also tried a couple other melee weapons. I upgraded the pistol all the way. But just upgrade the weapons that you want that fit your gameplay. We'll get into some of my favorite weapons here in just a little bit. And the last thing about the weapon upgrades, make sure every gun that can, you're using cartridges on. Make sure you upgrade the cartridge all the way. And make sure that when you're in combat, you always have a cartridge equipped. They do a ton of damage. They will really help you out. I have a more detailed video on the channel describing cartridges if you're not really quite sure how to use them, so check that out. But these, make sure you're always using a cartridge on a weapon. Then the last thing we want to talk about here before we get into the best guns and stuff in this game is the enemy types. You can scan enemies to see what they're resistant to and what they're vulnerable to. But let's just keep it really simple. There's pretty much 2 enemy types in this game. There's robots, and then there's what the game calls organic enemies, or the mutants. When you are fighting robots, you're going to want to use the shock ability like crazy, and you're going to want to use electric cartridges. When you're fighting the organic enemies, you're going to want to use the burning cartridges. The freezing of the enemies pretty much works on both, so make sure you're always freezing enemies as well. But it is really that simple. Most of the robots are vulnerable to shock. Most of the organic enemies are vulnerable to burn. Now, as far as the best class, for the abilities, like I said earlier, I like to use the shock, the frostbite, and the polymeric jet. This is typically how my inventory would look toward the end of the game. A railgun, all fully upgraded, shotgun, fat boy, pistol, my favorite weapon in the game, which was the Fox, and then plenty of ammunition, cartridges, and consumables to go along with it. The fully upgraded Fox was probably my favorite weapon in the game. This thing is fully upgraded. It attacks so fast, and it does so much damage. It's pretty OP if you ask me. I really like most of the melee weapons in this game. Like I said earlier, it's typically what I use. The charge ability on this Fox does so much damage. There's a little clip of me absolutely destroying one of the bosses in this game. And then as far as a fully upgraded Fat Boy, recommend going for this if you can. When this thing's fully upgraded, it holds up to 3 rockets instead of just 1. And then you can either choose to go with homing rockets, proximity mines, but the one that I went with was basically bigger splash damage, bigger blast radius. This thing one-shots, 2-shots pretty much every enemy in the game. Let's fully upgrade it. And of course, who doesn't like having a missile launcher in their inventory? And we spoke of the railgun earlier. I highly recommend using this thing. What I typically would do with this is I would start a fight by using the railgun and get off as many shots as you can. And so basically you run out of energy, and then I would normally switch to either my shotgun or melee weapon, which is typically what I would use in this game to kind of finish off fights. If the fight went long enough, I would switch back to the railgun, but probably the best energy weapon in the game. Overall, I just think that as long as you're taking your time in this game, you're gathering resources, you're upgrading your character, you're finding weapon upgrades, and you're upgrading your weapon, and you're constantly managing your inventory to make sure you have plenty of ammo, plenty of consumables in it, I think you'll have no problem getting through this game. I really have enjoyed this game. I think it's very rewarding once you do get the weapon upgrades and you see the impact they have and just how much better they are. This game has been an absolute blast, especially towards the end game, where your character is fully upgraded and the weapons are fully upgraded. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know in the comments what you guys thought of the video, and if maybe you did some things different. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that use maybe a different melee weapon, different guns. This is just what worked best for me. I think it will work best for a lot of people. I'd appreciate the feedback. Leave a like on the video if you did enjoy it and it helped you out. I really hope that it did. There's plenty of Atomic Heart guides on the channel if you're looking into them. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much.